Well, welcome, Bruce, to the Life Illuminated podcast. It's so great to have you.
It's awesome to be here, Maggie. Thank you very much for inviting me on the show. This is exciting.
Yeah, and I am really excited to share with our audience what you are up to and who you are and all of the stand that you have taken for trying to do something about bullying in this country, or I guess globally, huh?
Well, globally, that's true. I'm in Canada, and bullying happens everywhere. I have certainly traveled to different countries teaching about bullying, and you know what? We're all humans. It all happens. You know, there are power struggles and reasons that this happens. But yeah, I'm super excited too about my podcast because that gives me a chance to ask people about this topic of bullying and mindfulness and how they connect.
Yeah, well, tell me a little bit about the journey that led you into doing this work.
Well, I was a teacher in a school and I taught music. I've always been a creative type and I always knew I'd love to do something with music. And so I got a degree in music and then became a music teacher. So that was exciting. But what was not exciting was seeing kids get bullied and get picked on and seeing the administration sweep it under the carpet and, let's pretend this isn't happening. I did not care for that. And so I just decided, you know what, I need to get out there and do something myself about that. And that's when I decided to create a musical anti-bullying program. And I thought, we need something where the kids can relate to it, where they are not going to forget the messages, where, it's going to make an impact. So I put my efforts into creating something that would fit that description. And I've presented programs thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And it's so exciting to do that.
So this is the stand-up program.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. And now I work more in mindfulness, but I have certainly spent a lot of time teaching about bullying, about mindfulness, and how mindfulness can overcome and minimize the amount of bullying. And not everybody gets that at first, but it's true. If you learn to live in the moment and appreciate and not judge others, not be critical of other people, then in turn, we'll learn not to be critical of ourselves. And a lot of bullying starts there with that inner voice that we have. And then we pick on ourselves. And the next thing we're picking on somebody else and bullying them. And that's where a lot of this originates.
Well, don't you think part of it lies in what I think is a misperception of reality that says somehow I'm separate from you?
I think so too.
Yeah. And if you come to the party thinking that you're separate from someone else, then it's easy to put them down because you're always trying to one up.
I totally agree, Maggie. We're all in this thing together. We're all members of one big family. And some people might think, oh, that sounds kind of strange. But the more you can think about a person, if you look into a person's eyes and you think, that could be my sister. That could be my father. That could be my mother. It's true. We could all be related, and somehow way back there, we probably all are related, but we're all one as human beings. And I like to look at it that way too.
Exactly. And I think, that one thing I think is the driving force behind all war and racism and bigotry and all of it.
Yeah, I agree.
If I think somehow I'm not, I'm not the same as you, then, or I have a really poor self-image and self-esteem, then I'm going to do anything I can to make myself look bigger, look stronger. Look more together. And the only way for me to do that would be to put you down.
Yeah, that's true. And in fact, there are way better ways to survive in this world than to put other people down. That's the last thing we should be doing. We should be, looking to see what we can do to make the world a better place. How can we help others?
Well, how long have you been doing this?
I started in 2003.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you seen bullying getting worse over this period of time?
Well, I've certainly seen it transition. there have been many, many changes. And of course, back in 2003, social media was not something that was really happening. And so, bullying transitioned to be an online thing. And in schools, that's huge. So kids would get on to whatever app it would be, and they would figure out ways that they could put each other down using those tools. So that's certainly one way where it's changed. And, like, it depends on the atmosphere. There are a lot of places of business, a lot of schools where it's dealt with very productively, very well. It's treated as something that really needs to be open and talked about and constantly addressed. And so there are some very healthy environments now as a result of the fact that there are so many people like me teaching about bullying prevention.
Well, what's interesting to me, and I have two children, they're not quite children anymore. I have a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old, and they live and breathe by that silly cell phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I have found as a parent, that as soon as they got cell phones, my role as a parent pretty much disappeared or shifted. For sure shifted, maybe not disappeared, but shifted in that when they're on social media, who knows who's saying what to them or what they are saying to another or posting about another. And as a parent, and I'm sure for you as a teacher, when you were teaching, you found this to be the case too, is like, where or how do I step in?
Right. Yeah, that's true. And it's important for us all to realize that every one of us, we're role models, and we need to be strong and not be afraid to say the way things should be in a kind of way, but we need to be firm and be great examples for the way the world should be. And I think that we can make tremendous improvements with the world by doing that.
It's interesting because I love what you're doing. And, my whole mission in life is to create world peace one person at a time, through meditation and mindfulness. And it sounds like we share common ground there.
Yes.
It's a tough battle, isn't it? When you look at how consumed we all are with those devices, but not just that, with television and the messages and who we have in power, and how our collective consciousness actually elected who's in power now.
Yeah.
And that broader picture feels sometimes quite daunting, because what you and I do is awesome, right? If not you, who, right? So
Right.
I feel like in a lot of ways it's my responsibility, and I love it. It lights me up. But some days I do feel like, wow, this is a really uphill battle.
Yes, right. Well, it definitely starts with one. It starts with me. It starts with the individual. And I agree with you that meditation can make a huge difference, because otherwise we can feel completely overwhelmed. We can feel filled with anxiety and stress and as though we're not getting anywhere. But with meditation in our lives, we can appreciate the moment. We can appreciate the day and just completely enjoy what's happening and be grateful for life as it is right now.
So tell me what type of meditation you teach or do on your own.
Well, I teach uh, just meditation to just teach people how to connect with the moment and just take it one step at a time into a regular daily practice. And I begin with guided meditation, and I teach, focus on your breath. That works for a lot of my clients. And I find that that's very helpful to start with the breath and move from there. And I also start with guided meditations. And then a lot of times my clients move towards silent meditations, but it takes time. And I think it's perfectly fine for it to transition from one type of meditation to another. How about you, Maggie?
Well, I teach silent mantra-based meditation. I studied under Deepak Chopra and have a Chopra Center certification for meditation. So all of my classes, of course, begin with some pranayama, breathing exercises, but ultimately we go to mantra meditation. And for me, just with my crazy mind, for me, that's been the most challenging, but the most rewarding type of meditation so far that I've attempted, because I've tried some others where, somebody's guiding you, or an app with music, etc. And there's a lot of wonderful meditation out there.
Yes.
But for me, for someone who gets distracted a little more easily probably than some, I think more distraction in the form of music and noise and other people talking is harder for me. It's
And how
probably
long do you meditate every day, Maggie?
30 minutes twice a day, every day. 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening.
And when you studied with Deepak, what was that like? Because I've never studied with Deepak Chopra.
He is a fascinating man, and so extraordinarily well read. He can quote passages from Rumi and Hafiz and all kinds of things that he's read before. And what's interesting about Deepak is that he started as a medical physician. He was an endocrinologist. So he's a scientist to begin with, and then moved into his spiritual life. So what I really enjoy about Deepak is that he marries the two. He marries the scientific principles with the spiritual principles. And for some of us who are a little more analytical, it's very important that you can see the broader perspective. And he's had quite his run-in with a lot of scientists just trying to prove his own point, or, but he's amazing. He really is.
Yeah, well, I really believe in meditation, and with my clients, sometimes they get discouraged and they feel like it's not getting anywhere with it, and so on. But I think just step by step is what works. It certainly works with my clients, just helping them just believe and move forward, even if it's a small amount, and even if they're just taking even 5 minutes a day, at first. Do you find that?
Yeah, there's no amount of time spent practicing your spiritual, principles that's ever goes to waste. So it doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes or an hour. It really doesn't. And it's not necessary to do really more than 20 minutes twice a day. To me, that is definitely a goal that I challenge my students with. If you start with 5 minutes, see if you can build yourself up as a practice. And to not ever miss more than one. So if you're doing your morning meditation and your evening meditation, and you have to miss that evening one, don't miss that next morning. Don't miss 2 in a row, because it's just too easy for us to jump off the bandwagon and have to start over.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, I find that so many of my guests that I have on my podcast talk about meditation, and they tell me, different forms, and some of them find that they meditate through an activity or something that is their special interest, and that's their form of meditation. So a lot of people have different forms of meditation, and so I get letters from some of my listeners who talk about how much they connect with some of these ideas about meditation. And I just received a note yesterday from somebody. They saw online that my podcast had been voted as the #2 top mindfulness podcast to listen to in 2019. And so I thought that was really cool. But I have interviewed almost 400 people. So we've talked about meditation with many, many different people. And what is the most interesting kind of meditation you've heard from some of your guests that you've talked to?
Well, a lot of my guests really like the breath work.
Right.
And some are not familiar with mantra-based meditation unless for some reason they had done TM in the past,
Right.
transcendental meditation in the past. And one of my favorites, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk,
Yes.
he recommends walking meditation, which I absolutely love, because the way he teaches it is that you present as though each step is kissing the earth.
Yes.
And it's 3 breaths in as you step forward, and then 5 breaths out. 3 breaths in, 5 breaths out. Now, if we all practice that, can you see how slow and nice and methodical and deliberate we would be? And I love the idea of kissing the earth. I think
Oh,
it's
I do too.
beautiful. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
he also has another one, hugging meditation, which I love. You know how you hug people and sometimes you get the person that just pats you on the back?
Yes.
You know, it's not quite a hug. It's kind of like
Yes.
a feeling of obligation.
Yes.
And then you get that person that almost squeezes your rib cage to death.
Yes.
You can't breathe. And then there's the rest of us, right?
Right.
But in hugging meditation, the idea is that when you hug someone, you actually just stop and you breathe into that person and you hold on to them. There doesn't have to be pressure. There doesn't have to be words. You're just practicing the art of being with another human being. And I love that because I did this with my 20-year-old daughter as she was heading back off to college last week. And she was like rolling her eyes. Oh, Mom. I'm like, just humor me. I think you're going to like this. Go with it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did. And what I found, two things I found was, first, she breathed really rapidly.
Right.
She was pretty stressed out, pretty worked up. Secondly, though, the longer we were holding each other, I felt her breathing slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually felt her breathing go in sync with mine.
Oh, that is very, very cool. That you must have felt so connected at that moment.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yes,
and I haven't really done that very often, the hugging meditation, but I think I'm going to do more of that.
Yeah, I really like that.
Isn't that neat?
Yes. Yeah.
So what impact do you see when you talk about mindfulness and meditation with your students or the people you do have music with?
Well, I find that there's so much anxiety in the world today. I find that, like you mentioned, cell phones, we're so connected to social media and we're so connected to the news. And like I shut that off about, I think 5 years ago. I just thought, no, I don't want to have that in my life. But most people on our planet are very connected with the news and with what's happening. And they get into this state of anxiety that people don't even realize they're in. And so when I work with people, I find that they just start to relax and they start to breathe and they start to feel so much more alive and so much more content. So I think it makes a huge difference when you can help people become enlightened and understand what mindfulness truly is.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think one of the biggest challenges my students have is when they come in and sit with me, the first thing they will say is, I can't be a meditator. I don't know how. My mind is just moving too fast and blah, blah, blah. And first of all, what's amazing is they actually came anyway to
Yes.
try, right?
Yes. Well,
But
that's right.
secondly, to be able to train people, and I think this is the most important part, that meditation is not about not thinking. Meditation is about noticing when you have strayed off into thinking and be able to use some form of a tool, whatever that is for you, to bring yourself back to remembering to be still. That's all meditation is. It's not complicated. It's not, I can't do it. Everyone can meditate. Doesn't matter how stressed out you are or whether you have ADD or anxiety attacks or whatever. Every one of us can meditate. It really is, and Deepak would say this all the time, it really comes down to your dedication. It's like,
Yes. Yes. And I find meditation truly helps people sleep more easily and more deeply. And I know my father asked me about a year ago, he said, Bruce, I just can't sleep at night. Can you help me? And he's been through a real tough journey. And sadly, he just passed away this month. And but I was very happy to be able to help him in some ways, even if they were small ways, just by spending hours with him and talking with him and asking him about, what's on your mind? What can you share right now? And he would tell me stories that I had never heard before. And I thought it was incredibly valuable to just spend that time with him and learn from him about what really made him tick as a man. And so, yeah, I wish I could have taught him more meditation, actually.
Did you get a sense from your father at any point as he was dying that he may have wished he had done anything differently?
Oh, absolutely. In the final few weeks up to his death, he talked about regrets. He talked about different things that he had done and things that he wished he hadn't done. And he talked about he talked about some of the things that had happened. I asked him, I said, tell me what you're thinking right now. He says, I'm thinking about my dad and my mom. And his mother died when he was a young person, about 15 years old. And that was very traumatic for him. But I said, tell me about your dad. You've never really told me much about your dad in relation to your mom. And he said this word, and I couldn't pick it up at first because his lips were dry and his throat was dry. And I asked him to repeat it, and he said, despicable. It was despicable how my father treated my mother.
Huh.
And I said, really? What did you see? What did you experience? And he said, Dad would go for days without speaking to her. He just wouldn't speak to her. And my sister would go and talk to him and say, please talk to my mother, please. And he wouldn't. And he talked about how that affected him, how it just hurt him so much, it cut him so deeply.
Interesting. Well, in some ways, you devoted your life to that same topic, right? Bullying.
Yes.
Because isn't that a
Yes,
form of bullying?
exactly.
And you never knew that story
No,
before.
I didn't. I
Isn't
never
that
knew.
fascinating?
It is.
Well, and any one of the you know, known philosophers or greats like Thich Nhat Hanh or Deepak or whatever will tell you that we all inherit our ancestors'
That's right.
past and their
That's right.
karma, right? So on some level, you must have known that about your
Yes.
dad, don't you think?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I saw a lot of anger over the years that he had and that he kept repressed. And and I always tried to understand, hey, what is this? Like, what would make a man like this? Why would he have so much anger? And he revealed it to me at the end, why he had so much anger.
Interesting. And I asked you the question about, did your father express regrets before he died? Because a lot of times when I'm with new clients or old clients, we talk about this idea that, do you want to be someone on your deathbed who looks back at your life and says, I wish I did it differently, or I wish I took that trip with the kids, or I wish I did that, but I didn't because I was so consumed with the stress and the doingness and the busyness of my life that years go by so fast that I didn't even notice.
That's right. Well, one thing that he did do is that when he retired, he asked me if I would teach him how to play the accordion, because he always loved the accordion. When I was young, he wanted me to learn how to play the accordion, and he bought me a brand new accordion, which I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so I learned to play the accordion, and he would sit and listen to me practice it every night. He'd put on a big wood fire, and then he'd say, Bruce, just sit down and play the accordion. And I would do it night after night after night. But his wish was that someday he would learn to play it. So when he retired, I gave him lessons, and he came to my house for 2 years for accordion lessons. And it was an opportunity for me to really get to know him in a new way and connect with him differently than I ever had before. And after that, he decided that he wanted to play for old people in nursing homes and retirement homes. And he played at over 20 different nursing homes and retirement homes. And in fact, one of them near where he lived, they had a standing invitation that he could just go there anytime at all and play his accordion. So we talked about that. And the last time we talked before he passed away, and he said, "Oh, did you bring your accordion today?" And I said, "No, I didn't." But we talked all about his favorite songs and how much he loved to play that instrument.
Well, it sounds like you had a wonderful relationship with him. I'm so sorry for your loss, and very recent too. So,
Yeah, it was recent. Yeah.
yeah. So how, since you started stand up now, how has your life transformed? What kinds of, can you describe any tangible ways that you see that you yourself have shifted and grown through your own mission?
Well, yes, I have. I have more freedom in my life, because that's what happens when you become an entrepreneur. And before that, I loved doing music. I was a church music director at a church, at various churches over the years. So I did that, and I was a music teacher in a school, and I was just busy, go, 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 go. And I loved doing the music, but then I realized after that I was able to create space when I was an entrepreneur. And I connect with far more people because I interview people from all over the world for the podcast, and over 1 million people have downloaded the show. And so, like I've reached out a lot more and created a lot more space and freedom for myself. So that has made a huge difference.
Oh, I'll bet. Were there some obstacles and internal fears that you had to overcome?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there were definitely internal fears for sure. It was difficult leaving behind a teaching job where I had a really great pension. And, like most people would say, "Are you crazy?" And some people did say that. But the fact was, I could see that I could do more of what I was destined to do by being an entrepreneur and reaching out and helping other people in business and in their personal lives through meditation and mindfulness.
Yeah. Who do you think has most influenced your life path, or is your greatest role model?
Well, my greatest role model when I was a kid was my Aunt Vesta. And she was this incredibly wonderful, warm personality. And she would come to our house sometimes, and she would sit down to the piano, and she would play these big full chords, and her hands would go back and forth, and she'd laugh and smile. And but the first thing she would do when she came to our house, and even though I was just a young kid, she'd look right into my eyes and she'd say, "Tell me about you." And she always did that. And I always remembered that she wasn't there to tell me her stories and what was happening in her life. She wanted to know about me. And I think that was something that really taught me how to listen to others. So she
Oh,
was a wonderful influence. And she she lived by the university, and so she would take in different university students and then get to know them, and made lifetime friendships with people who became authors and scientists and all kinds of people like that. She was a wonderful person and had a great positive influence on me.
and there again, you can see the correlation with your life about how you're reaching out and meeting all kinds of people from all walks of life.
That's true. Yeah, I
Yeah.
never thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Now, do you have suggestions for anyone out there who might be really struggling to just find a way to live a life illuminated?
Absolutely, I do. And we talked about this earlier. I think that the best thing you can do is just take time to meditate in whatever form that takes for you. And maybe for you, that's, go to a yoga class, and at that yoga class, they'll have some element of meditation, and then you can go with that and make it your own. Or maybe it's some other kind of class, or maybe you're just going to start doing it on your own. Because I think a lot of us think it's more difficult than it truly is. But the thing is, just having the discipline to sit down and give yourself 5 minutes. Like we said earlier, it only has to be 5 minutes of silence where you're noticing your breath, you're taking the time, and then you'll probably want to increase it to 6 or 8 or 10 minutes. And I know that for a very long time, I meditated for 20 minutes every night before I went to bed and 20 minutes every morning. Now I meditate every morning, and anytime throughout the day when I feel the need, I just stop and I think, you know what, this is a time I just need some quiet, some silence, some meditation. And I think that can make the most difference in your life of anything I can think of.
And for someone who's trying to figure out while they're listening to you, how in the world is taking 5 minutes for me going to help me illuminate my life, what would you say?
Just try it. Just do it. And that's the thing. We think about things over and over and over, hundreds and thousands of times. But how often do we think of something once and then just take action and do it? Taking action is the answer. So just do it.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. I think you're exactly right. People do make it out to be so tough. And that's probably the hardest part, right?
Yes.
We, I think for the most part, don't know how to just be with
true.
ourselves. And, the silence didn't go anywhere. The silence is always there. We're the ones who left.
That's right.
So it's really about returning. And actually, Deepak loves to say it as remembering, like you're remembering yourself, your brain, your soul, your life, your love, all of it. You are returning to it because it never left. You're the one who left.
Right.
So, to me, that's a great description for my students, especially to have them let themselves off the hook, that you didn't get into this stressful, chaotic doingness of life overnight. And meditation is called a practice for a reason. It's not, I have a podcast, one of my podcasts is called Fast Food Spirituality for this very thing. We think we can Google peace and we just have to meditate once and we're good. And we don't really want to work very hard anymore. I think for the most part, especially the newer generation, they can Google anything and everything. They barely have to study. And most of them don't even have school books anymore. So it's, I think sometimes the social media has helped us find a very easy way out of a lot of things. But in that process, it's pulling us away from this kind of thing, this connection that I think we all really yearn for. And I personally think that we are suffering from the greatest time of loneliness probably ever because
I do too.
Yeah, don't you?
Oh,
yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I just feel that so much, that, we're tapping away on our phones or texting people and so on, but we're not making true connections a lot of the time and really spending time. Like you look back and, families used to have, the grandparents living with them or extended family living with them. And there'd always be, people to talk to in the home there about whatever was bothering you. And if a certain topic, you might think, oh, that's something I want to talk to my sister about or my grandmother or something. But nowadays, everybody's off working and taking off, and we have far fewer people living in the homes usually compared to back then.
Well, and isn't there so much wisdom in ages, right?
Yes.
It's so amazing to be surrounded by your grandfather, your father, your aunts and uncles, and then even the little nephews, because every single one of them is a teacher in their own way. And I agree with you. I think we've become so disconnected, and we think that we're connected because we're on this silly phone and we could talk to someone across in Israel today if we wanted to.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? I'm talking to you and you're in Canada and I'm in San Diego. So,
Yeah.
but you and I are actually looking at each other and talking.
Right, exactly.
Right? So that's a
Yeah.
step up. Right?
Yeah.
From, because
Well,
my kids are at a generation too. They don't talk on the phone.
no, I know.
They don't.
I know people, a lot of people that I talk to today go, oh, I hope I can text you because I don't really want to have to talk on the phone. Yeah.
It's just too much effort for me to dial your number and actually hear your voice. And I
Yeah.
think, we laugh, right? But I am concerned for our future generations if we don't make some kind of a shift.
Well, it's a very different world. And I know I made up my mind a long time ago I wanted to have a close, warm relationship with my son. And that's one of the reasons I started the anti-bullying work way back when he was about 3. I thought, you know what? I see bullying at school in my job and I never want him to be bullied. And then when I created my musical anti-bullying program, I thought I need to be an alter ego. I need to be a different character, upbeat, crazy, silly. I decided to become a DJ. And I thought, I'll name my DJ. My DJ name will be Benny DL. And that was named after my son, Benjamin David Langford. And so I was always Benny DL, the DJ. And then later, when he became a teen, he studied audio editing. So he's my editor for my podcast. So he works side by side with me. And sometimes, you know what it's like, sometimes it can be frustrating, with technology or whatever. And so one day I thought, I do not want to work with my son and have it be a negative experience. So I decided that anytime I would feel frustrated working with him, I'd just stand up and I'd say, hey, Ben, how about a hug? And so you brought up this with hugs earlier. And I just said, this is just, you might think it's silly, but it's something I want to do because I want to tell you that I love you. I care for you. I always will. And no matter whether we're having a technical issue or whatever is stressing us out here at work with the audio editing, I just want to stop, pause, and have a hug. And so at first he kind of laughed about it, but then he's okay with it. And he learns a lot of mindfulness from my guests by editing the show. And he wants to be a theoretical physicist. So he's going into university next year, and this is his dream, is to be a scientist. And since he was about 7 years old, he told me he wanted to be a scientist. And so his dream is about to unfold.
That's wonderful. It's great when they start to launch, right?
Yes, it
You can
is.
sit back and say, okay, I didn't do such a bad job. It turned out okay, right? So
Well,
other
yes.
than suggesting meditation, what would be another piece of advice, the one piece of advice that you would give anyone listening to the Life Illuminated podcast today?
Welcome some form of art into your life, some kind of, whatever it is. And you might not think you have any connection to art at all. And when I say art, I mean any form of music or visual art or the written word, poetry. I think too often we become adults and we push some of those things aside. We no longer go to theater. We no longer listen to music the same way. But I've talked to a lot of people who have been immersed in a life in corporate, and then they came to this realization, I need something in my life that I truly connect with and am passionate about. And a lot of times it's painting, or it's, some form of art, writing poetry or something like that. So that's what I would suggest. Embrace some form of art that you connect with.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's fabulous because it does keep your creative side going, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And when all else fails, if you're at your lowest low, you can still do whatever that is
That's true.
and have whatever that is. Yeah, that's
And
great.
Yeah, I think it's great if you choose something that you can do as you age, as you get older,
Right.
because if you don't, you can feel lost as you
Mhm.
get older and you feel like you have no value in the world. And it's very important to have interests and hobbies and things you connect with as you get older.
Well, I think it's interesting because I see a lot of my clients, I do mindful life coaching as well. And a lot of my clients are some newly empty nesters. And it's almost like they're standing in the living room when the kid goes off to college and they're like, now what do I do?
Right.
So there is a huge sense of who am I? Now that
Hmm.
the children are gone, I don't even know what role I play.
Right.
So there's a lot of work in there that has to be done in re-identifying, remembering
Yes.
of who they are, right? How are you best suited to use your gifts and talents to serve humanity? It doesn't mean that you're no longer a mother or father. You always will be. It's just that that role shifts. But I think unfortunately we identify ourselves so strongly with the role that we put ourselves in, that very thing you're talking about, if you don't have something to fall back on when that role disappears, you're lost.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I experienced that too when I left teaching. You know, I had been a teacher teaching music for so long. And for a while I was like, I just don't feel right. You know, that was my identity as a music teacher. And it took a while to transition and to realize that I am not a teacher. That's not who I am. That's what I do or what I did, you know. And it's something that's difficult to learn sometimes.
Well, yeah. I mean, we either think we're the positions or the possessions, right?
Yes.
I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a teacher, I'm a this, I'm a that.
Yeah.
And we do get lost. Just like you said, it just
Yeah, we
makes
do.
total sense that you would have sort of lost your balance there when you
Yes.
stop doing what you've been doing for decades.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But that's not who you are. Like you said, that doesn't define you. It's just the
No,
role you were playing for a certain amount of time.
that's true.
Deepak always likes to remind us that, take a look at the picture of you as a baby. You're not that picture anymore, right? Your
No.
roles and who you are changes moment to moment on a cellular level. So for us to think that all of those things are permanent, whatever role that is silly.
Yes, it really is.
But if we have identified so strongly that when that's gone, then we fall apart. So, Bruce, can you tell us a little bit about where people can learn more about you, connect with you, find
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. You can find me at mindfulnessmode.com. And I'm always there. And that's where you can connect with me. You can send me an email, Bruce at mindfulnessmode.com, and I'd love to jump on a call and chat with you. I'm always open to that, and we can get on a Skype call or a Zoom call or something. But email me and reach out to me and tell me what you enjoyed about this interview, because I always love feedback like that, you know. And then tell me a little bit about you and what you thought about your life in relation to the interview that we had today, because this was so wonderful talking with you, Maggie.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I really appreciate you being on the show today, Bruce. And
Thank
I
you.
look forward to chatting with you again at some point.
Oh yeah, me too. It's been so much fun.
Yeah. Well, for all of those out there, here's to living a life illuminated. Thank you so much, Bruce, for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That was great.
Yes, it was
It was
great.
great.
Thank you
It
so
was
much.
fun. Yeah.